I didn't even believe in astrology. Okay, maybe I'd check my horoscope if it popped up on Instagram, but full-on natal charts. Moon signs, retrograde whatever. That was some crunchy LA stuff I always smiled through on dates, then rolled my eyes about in the car. Until his ex sent me hers, with my name on it, under karmic debt. Let me rewind. His name was Adrian, and when I say he walked into my life like fate, I mean the man literally saved me from a locked stairwell at work. I was late, frazzled, heels in one hand, iced coffee in the other, praying not to lose it completely. The elevator was out. I'd tried the emergency exit door, it shut behind me and wouldn't open again. Cue the panic attack, cue the sweaty palms, cue Adrian with the calm voice and master key. He worked in building maintenance, but he didn't look like it. Black button-down, slim-fit jeans, warm brown eyes that studied you like a poem he was trying to memorize. And that accent, part London, part nowhere, just enough to make you all right, sound like a love song. I wasn't all right, but suddenly I wanted to be. He walked me to my office. We made awkward small talk. He handed me my coffee cup, which he'd picked up after I dropped it in the chaos. It was cracked. That's a bad omen, I joked. Or a fresh start, he said. Tell me that's not soulmate shit. We ran into each other more and more. Lunch breaks, maintenance checks that weren't strictly necessary. One day I found him standing outside my building at dusk, staring at the sky. He told me about Jupiter's position and how it influenced trust. I laughed, you believe in that stuff. He shrugged, only when it's true. The more I learned about Adrian, the more convinced I became that this was different. Not like the trauma-bonded flings I was used to. Not like the therapist I dated last fall who forgot to tell me he was still married. Adrian was calm, consistent, curious. He asked me about my childhood and my favorite breakfast cereal. He listened. 3 months in, he brought me flowers that matched my living room. He said he remembered me mentioning the color palette on our second coffee. He kissed my palm. My palm. I told my best friend, he's it, I don't care if it's cheesy. I think I met my person. Which is why, when a burner Instagram account slid into my DMs with a screenshot of his hand, same scar on the knuckle, same leather band on the wrist, tangled with another woman's fingers, I didn't breathe for a full minute. Caption, guess soulmates can double book. There was no name, no context, just coordinates in the location tag, some beach I didn't recognize. I confronted him, of course I did. He said it was old, claimed it was from before we met, claimed she was crazy. Her name's Leila, he said, voice tight. She used to do astrology for a living. She thought we were twin flames. It got intense. You're still in touch. No, she does this sometimes. Tries to mess with people I date. He said it with the exasperation of someone who dealt with it before. But also, somehow, like I was the one being dramatic. I wanted to believe him. I really did. I needed to. But then the email came. Sent to my work account. Subject line, if you love him, read this. It had a PDF attachment, a full natal chart, my birthday, my exact birth time, my name misspelled slightly. And in bold, red letters next to the 12th house, karmic entanglement, he will drain you. She'd written notes in the margins, scribbled interpretations, circled parts that referenced manipulation. There were arrows pointing from my Venus to his Mars with the word, illusion, underlined 3 times. At first I thought it was insane. I mean, who does that? But then I noticed the date she ran the chart. It was the night before I met Adrian in the stairwell. Not after. Before. I reread the message at least 10 times, my brain trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Was it a warning, a trap, a mind game? Or was it something I couldn't explain? That night I lay next to Adrian in bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. He was breathing slow, arm around my waist, everything seemingly perfect. But suddenly it didn't feel real. It felt scripted. What if this wasn't random? What if I'd been part of a story someone else started writing years ago? And what if the ending had already been decided? You know how people say, trust your gut? Well, mine was doing somersaults, but also baking cookies. That's how confusing it was. Every moment with Adrian felt comforting and magnetic, like sitting beside a fireplace you know is too close to the curtains. I didn't show him the chart. Not right away. I needed to figure out whether I was spiraling or being shown something. Instead, I called Sasha, my oldest friend, the only person I knew who spoke astrology fluently and also didn't believe in fairy tales. She came over with tarot cards and cinnamon whiskey. First of all, she said, flipping through the PDF like it was a gossip magazine, this girl's handwriting screams Pinterest witch with a vengeance. But also, she's not wrong. You've got Neptune all over this thing. Fog, illusion, fantasy. I stared at her. Okay, but what does that mean in English? She pointed to the 12th house. Karmic debt. That usually means you're stuck in a pattern you didn't start. Something he owes, but you're paying for. Oh great, I'm a spiritual credit card. Sasha grinned, with zero cash back. We laughed, but it felt hollow. Like we were in on a joke the universe wrote about me. I looked back at the email. Leela had written something near the bottom that I hadn't noticed before. I thought I was the lesson. I was wrong, you are. And suddenly, I wasn't laughing. Over the next few days, I watched Adrian differently. I started noticing tiny things, his casual deflection when I asked about his weekend plans, the way his phone was always just out of reach, how he always steered conversations away from his past. I wanted to ask more, push more, but every time I tried, he did this thing, looked into my eyes and said something soft like, "You don't have to worry, okay?" And it worked, like a pressure valve. My anger just evaporated. That's when I realized, this man didn't just know how to avoid confrontation, he knew how to seduce silence. One night, he took me to a rooftop jazz bar. Candles, skyline, all the date night clichés. We drank old fashions and shared a dessert. He held my hand the whole time, brushing his thumb against my skin like he was memorizing me. And I almost forgot about Leela, about the email, about my spiraling gut. Until I went to the bathroom and checked my phone. New message, unknown number, screenshot attached. It was a text thread between Adrian and someone named Cassie. Her contact photo was cropped out, but the message was crystal clear. Adrian, she suspects something. Cassie, then make her feel loved. You're good at that. Adrian, working on it, she brought up that damn chart. Cassie, Leela, lol, told you it'd get in her head. I stared at the screen until the edges blurred. I wasn't being warned. I was being played. They knew I'd seen the chart. They'd counted on it. They knew I'd question myself, second-guess everything, spiral right back into his arms. This wasn't some ex-girlfriend being dramatic. This was a performance. And I was the audience, the prop, and the finale. I walked back to the table like I was underwater. Adrian stood to pull out my chair, smiling like he was about to propose. I sat, I smiled back. I sipped my drink like it wasn't laced with betrayal. But I knew then, I wasn't in a love story. I was in a setup. And they had no idea, I was about to rewrite the ending. The next morning, I couldn't tell if I was more hungover from the whiskey or from the reality I'd swallowed whole. Adrian was still asleep when I slipped out of bed and stood in our tiny kitchen, staring at the half-used bottle of maple syrup like it held answers. We had just grocery shopped together 2 days ago. We picked out the same damn bread. How do you buy sourdough with someone and still lie to their face? I wanted to scream. Instead, I made pancakes. He shuffled in around 10, rubbing his eyes and flashing that sleepy smile that once made me weak. Now it made me cold. Smells amazing, he said, coming up behind me to wrap his arms around my waist. I didn't flinch, didn't melt. I just said, "Who's Cassie?" I felt him freeze, barely perceptible, but it was there. Then came the performance. Cassie, from work, I think. Why? I slid my phone across the counter. The screenshot was still open. His eyes landed on it, and then he had the audacity to laugh. "Oh wow," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "This again? Babe, that's not what it looks like." Then explain it to me, like I'm stupid, like I'm the idiot you and your backup girl are gossiping about behind my back. He started packing, hands in his hair. "Okay, look, she's Leela's friend, or she's just messy. She hates that I moved on, okay? She's been stirring shit ever since we broke up. You said you barely talked to Leela." I don't. She's obsessed. This is just some weird attempt to sabotage what we have. I wanted to believe him. God help me, part of me still did. But there were cracks now, and no amount of smooth talking could fill them. And the message, where you said I brought up the chart. She sent that to me as a trap, okay? I was trying to keep her calm. You were trying to keep me calm. Silence. He couldn't even lie fast enough. That was the day I started collecting evidence. Not for revenge, yet, for sanity, for clarity. I needed to know what was real and what had been a hallucination spelled out in soft words and forehead kisses. So I started watching. He'd take his phone to the bathroom. I'd note the time. He said he had to work late. I'd check his location with that, find my app he forgot we still shared. He started saying things like, "You're acting paranoid," and "We should take a weekend away, reconnect." I smiled, I nodded, I said, "That sounds amazing." But I wasn't planning a getaway. I was planning an exit. Sasha helped me install spyware. Nothing too invasive, just enough to get mirrored texts and app activity, the kind that left no trace. Within 48 hours, it was raining secrets. Flirty texts, voicemails from women I'd never met, DMs with heart emojis and voice notes calling him baby. But the worst was a private group chat titled The Flame Club. Leela, Cassie, and 2 other women. I scrolled and scrolled and scrolled through inside jokes and screenshots and memes about how to tame a twin flame. They talked about me like I was a puzzle, a project. "She's spiritual enough to be predictable," Leela wrote. "Tarot girlies always blame the planets." "She still thinks she's his divine counterpart," Cassie replied. "Let her burn." That's when the rage hit me, not explosive, not even loud. Just pure. Still. Heavy. Like wet concrete around my ribs. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on our sofa, reading every last message while Adrian lay in bed 10 feet away, dreaming his twisted dreams. And then I wrote my own script. I booked a table at the same rooftop bar, the same jazz band, the same ambience. I sent a text to his phone from an anonymous number. "Meet me Saturday, let's finish what we started." His entire demeanor changed the next day. Extra showers, new cologne, texting under the table, smiling at nothing. He was so sure he'd won. Saturday night, he showed up at the bar in his best shirt, scanning the crowd like a man chasing a fantasy. But it was Cassie waiting at that table. It was me. With a flash drive. And a folder full of truths. Ready to destroy the illusion he so carefully choreographed. Ready to become the chaos in his karmic lesson. He saw me before I saw him. I watched the light drain from his face across the dim glow of the rooftop bar. Jazz playing, city skyline behind me, and Adrian standing frozen in his date shirt, the one I once called his romantic con armor. He looked so dumbfounded it was almost cute if I didn't want to throw him off the edge. He walked over slowly, with a smile that tried to reassemble itself mid-stride. I didn't stand up. I didn't wave. I just sipped my martini and stared at him like a stranger. "Babe," he said, voice tight, "what are you doing here?" "I booked the table," I said. "You just brought the wrong expectations." He slid into the seat across from me like he still had control. "So, this was a setup." "No," I said, pulling a manila folder out of my tote and setting it between us. "This is a reveal." I opened it and slid the top paper forward. It was a printout of the group chat between Leela, Cassie, and the others. Names, timestamps, every nasty little line. He didn't touch it, just looked at it like it was poison. Maybe it was. "I don't even know what this is," he said, trying to chuckle. "Oh, come on," I said. "This isn't your first act. You dated a psychic, and now you're in a group chat where they analyze your girlfriends like tarot spreads." He opened his mouth, closed it, then said, "You broke into my phone." "Legally, no, morally, after this," I laughed. "Don't pretend you're the victim, Adrian." There was a beat of silence. The jazz singer crooned behind us like she was scoring the scene. He glanced around, clearly realizing other diners had started to notice us. The performance was slipping, his control crumbling. "I don't know what to say," he finally whispered. "Try, I'm not who I pretend to be. Or maybe, I never loved you, I just like the way you made me feel spiritual again." His jaw tightened. "That's not fair." "You think this is about fairness?" I hissed, leaning in. You think it's fair to prey on women who believe in connection and fate and twin flames just because you're charismatic and empty inside. He sat back like I'd hit him. I kept going. I believed in you, in us. You knew exactly what to say about energy, about past lives, about growth. And all the while, you were letting your ex coach your next move. Leela's insane, he muttered. No, she's diabolical, but you're lazy, you outsource your manipulation, that's even worse. He stood abruptly, scraping the chair against the floor. The whole bar noticed now. I could feel every eye on us, but I wasn't embarrassed. I was alive. Enjoy your little show, he spat. I'm done. No, I said calmly, pulling a flash drive from the folder. You'll be done when I'm done. He froze again. What is that? Oh, just everything. Screenshots, voice notes, your search history, your shared location data, evidence. You wouldn't. I stood up slowly, finally facing him at eye level. I won't post it. I'm not that vindictive, but I will send it to every single woman in that group chat, along with a little note from me, a reminder that their twin flame is an emotional pickpocket. He opened his mouth like he had something powerful to say. Nothing came out. I stepped around him and walked away. No tears, no trembling, just the sound of my heels on concrete. I didn't look back. He didn't follow. In the elevator, I texted Sasha, done, on my way. She replied with a gif of a girl, lighting a match and smiling. That night, we didn't cry over wine. We ordered fries, watched reality TV, and screamed at the screen like teenage girls. I slept in my old room in Sasha's apartment peacefully. No dream interpretation. No waking up wondering who he was texting. I knew exactly who he was. And I was done pretending I didn't. The funny thing about revenge is, once the adrenaline fades, the real ache begins. And it's never in the place you expect. It wasn't in my heart, not exactly. It was in my stomach, like a rotten pit lodged under my ribs. I wasn't sad he was gone. I was sick from how deep he'd gotten in without ever being real. The next morning, I woke up to a notification from Instagram. At Leela knows you had tagged me in a story. My breath caught. I tapped. It was a photo of a birth chart mine, circled in red, labeled, the karmic mirror. Below, a caption in cursive font, some people were never meant to stay. That's the lesson. Always is. The comments were turned off. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. Instead, I DM'd her one word. Unhinged. She left it on scene. Sasha peeked into my room with a fresh mug of coffee and a raised brow. She going full astrology mean girl on you. Oh yeah, I said, tossing the phone face down. She's weaponizing my Saturn return. Classic Leela, Sasha said, flopping beside me. So what now, you gonna tell the whole truth? I hesitated. What truth? Sasha turned serious. That you weren't just hurt, you were groomed, spiritually, emotionally, maybe even psychologically. I hated the word, groomed. It felt too dramatic, too victim-y. But the more I sat with it, the more it fit like a jagged puzzle piece. Adrian didn't just date me, he curated me, coached me into the kind of woman who'd cling to mysticism to excuse manipulation. He'd built a persona tailored to my trauma, spiritual, emotionally fluent, full of poetic-sounding emptiness. And I was just so fucking ready to be loved, I didn't see the performance. I didn't want to be a fool, but I had been. That night, I got a message from a woman named Tessa. Username, @MoonMarionette. It started like this. Hi, I know this is weird, but I think we both dated Adrian, and I think Leela did something to us. Attached were screenshots of my messages to Adrian, but they weren't from my number. They were forwarded from his old account. Apparently, he'd been sharing my texts in their entirety with Tessa during the time we were exclusive. His commentary, things like, see how she spirals, classic Virgo moon meltdown. Guess her trauma's acting up again. She still thinks she's the main character. I felt bile rise in my throat. Tessa's follow-up message said, I've been in therapy for 2 years trying to unlearn what he did to me. I thought I was crazy until I read your story. I replied, you're not crazy. He's just very good at pretending he's healing you while breaking you. The DMs poured in after that. Women I didn't know. Women who had liked, commented, and even shared Leela's posts in the past, all now whispering the same thing. I thought I was the only one. I was scared to speak up because she always made me feel unenlightened. He used the same damn lines on me. And the wildest part, none of them had ever met each other. We were like his constellation of casualties, scattered stars orbiting the gravity of his lies. One girl even said she met him at a breathwork retreat. He told her his last relationship ended because his partner was aligned with his third chakra. I wish I was joking. Another found his Reddit posts under an anonymous username, The Empath King. A whole thread about feminine energy healing with tips like mirror her inner wound to accelerate attachment. It made me physically nauseous. I wasn't just a karmic lesson, I was his fucking experiment. Sasha saw my face and said nothing, just reached over and muted the TV. Say it, she whispered. I finally looked up. He collected women like crystals, and I was his goddamn amethyst. There was silence. Then we both burst out laughing. It wasn't funny, but we had to laugh, or we'd cry for a decade. The spiral didn't end there. A week later, I got an email from Venus Ascend Wellness, the new age retreat Adrian and Leela used to promote. Thank you for your application to lead our karmic relationship workshop, it said. I hadn't applied. Turns out Leela had. She submitted my name and story as part of a narrative healing arc. She was trying to co-opt my trauma, rebrand it, profit from it. I sent them a cease and desist. They ghosted me. But I wasn't done. I recorded a podcast episode, just one, titled, When Your Soulmate is Just a Cult Recruiter. I didn't use names, but I didn't need to. It went viral in 3 days. Comments flooded in, shares, DMs from influencers. Even a BuzzFeed journalist reached out asking if I'd be open to telling the full story on record. I wasn't sure, but I was ready to stop being quiet. He made me feel like the moon revolved around him, like my pain was just another poetic metaphor. But this was me finally breaking orbit. And I didn't need a goddamn chart to know I was done with him. A few days after the podcast blew up, I got a message from a burner account. Just a black screen with white text. You're not the victim you think you are. That was it. No name, no profile photo, but I didn't need either. The cadence, the clipped punctuation, it was Adrian, or Leela, or both. They'd gone dark on socials, probably hopping to wait out the wave, but I wasn't going anywhere. I didn't reply. I just stared at the screen, feeling this bizarre mix of triumph and shame. Because here's the part I haven't told you. I still had the necklace he gave me. It was some handmade thing with a tiny moonstone and a brass tag stamped with the word align. I wore it the day he told me he saw our souls in a past life. I wore it the night he cried and said he'd never been loved this gently. I wore it the morning I realized I couldn't recognize myself in the mirror anymore. And I was still holding on to it, like a relic from a life I didn't fully escape. That night, I took it off for the first time in months. I didn't even throw it away dramatically or burn it in a moon ritual. I just dropped it into the back of the junk drawer with expired batteries and random IKEA screws. No ceremony, no closure. Just silence. But apparently, Adrian wasn't done writing his story. Because the next morning, a link showed up in my inbox. No message, just a link. I clicked. It was a course platform, like masterclass but for woo-woo nonsense. And there, front and center, was Adrian D., now branding himself as a relationship architect. The name of his course, Blueprints of the Soulmate, From Karma to Connection. I almost dropped my coffee. In the teaser video, he talked about energetic wounding, how feminine archetypes resist integration, and how he had survived a narcissistic partner who tried to destroy his light. I laughed a little too hard. Sasha walked in and asked what was so funny. I turned the laptop toward her. Apparently, I'm the karmic debt now. Sasha blinked. Are you fucking kidding me? Nope, he's monetizing my breakdown. We scrolled through the page. It was full of familiar phrases: twin flame dynamic, divine mirror, rebirth through rupture. And then we saw it. He was using my words. Lines I'd written in our texts, things I'd said during pillow talk, even a paragraph from a journal entry I once read aloud to him late one night when I still believed he was sacred. It hit me like a slap. He hadn't just loved me, he'd plagiarized me. It was never about building something real. It was about harvesting. I was his muse, not his partner. And now he was selling my grief as transformational content. That's when something in me snapped. I pulled up all my notes, screenshots, voice memos, journals, everything. And I started writing. A real version, not a podcast episode, not a tweet. A book. Not just about him, but about the whole system that enables people like him, the cult of performative healing. The way women are gaslit with spirituality. How the wellness industry cloaks abuse in affirmations and sage smoke. It wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. When I finished the first draft, I sent it to Sasha. She read it in a day and called me sobbing. "You wrote the thing I wish I'd had 10 years ago." A few weeks later, I got a call from a literary agent, then a publisher, then a contract. Advance payment, 5 figures. I used part of it to pay off my credit card. The one maxed out from our Bali couples retreat, where he made me cry over breakfast because my chakra wasn't open to feedback. And the rest. I booked a solo trip to Sedona, not for healing, not for closure. Just because I'd never done something alone for the hell of it. And there, on the third night, under a red rock sky, I laughed so hard I choked on my wine. Because I remembered something Leela had once whispered to me when we first met. "Don't fight your karma, babe, let it teach you." And holy shit, did it teach me. But not the lesson they thought. Because the real karmic debt was theirs. Looking back now, I don't even think Adrian was the worst part. I mean, sure, he manipulated me, used me, mirrored every little wound I confessed into something he could crawl into. But he wasn't the devil the cards warned me about. I was. Or at least, the version of me who handed over my instincts in exchange for affection. The girl who ignored red flags because they came wrapped in rose quartz. Who let herself be decoded by a man who couldn't even pronounce integrity without making it sound like a sales pitch. It took me months to admit that, maybe longer. But eventually, I stopped telling myself it was all some divine test, or cosmic joke, or karmic payback for how I treated my college ex. No, it was simple. I met a man. He sold me an illusion. And I bought it wholesale. Because I wanted it. I wanted to believe in soulmates, in signs, in the idea that trauma could be turned into poetry if you just stayed soft enough. I wanted someone to hold my mess and say, "This is sacred." And Adrian, he knew that, he counted on it. There's this moment I replay sometimes. Not the big fight, not the podcast, not the chart. It's the night I fell asleep next to him after we watched Eternal Sunshine on his tiny projector. I was curled up, half asleep, and he whispered into my hair, "You're the only person I've ever felt real with." And I believed him. Because I wanted to. But here's the punchline. That line, it's in his damn course trailer now, word for word. He even added cheesy piano under it. So no, I'm not bitter. I'm just done pretending that spiritual language makes abuse look prettier, or that calling someone a mirror gives you a license to shatter them. I stopped wearing crystal bracelets. I stopped doing 3-card pulls before every decision, but I never stopped trusting my gut. That thing is sharper than any deck. And if I ever meet another man who talks about past lives on the second date, I'll ask what he did in this life first. Because I'm not waiting for karma to circle back around anymore. I am the lesson. Let them study me. Subscribe to my Mia's Stories YouTube channel for raw, emotional stories and authentic insights that encourage healing, growth, and understanding. Don't forget to be part of a supportive space where stories inspire and lessons resonate. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments. Your opinion truly matters to us, and we're here for you.